Born child was found in the rubble, ripped from his wife's womb. Orla Guerin, BBC News, Beirut.
Well, let's cross live to Manila now and join James Dorsey, who is a Middle East expert at the National University of Singapore. James, thanks as always for coming on and speaking to us. I want to get your thoughts first on this 30-day ultimatum that the US has placed on Israel. What do you make, or what do you think is pushed them to set this deadline?
This is significant. First of all, it's the first time, except for a minor suspension of bombs of several months ago, it's the first time that the United States has come out very clearly over a difference that is long-standing between the Israelis and the United States, namely the access of humanitarian aid into Gaza, which Israel has been blocking. The deadline is significant in the sense that it is after the U.S. election. So, with other words, that's the period between the election and the inauguration of the new president on January 20th next year, where in many ways the administration will have the ability to do things it may not have been willing to do during an election period.
Well, that all depends on who wins, though, doesn't it, James? I mean, the fact that this timeline happens after the election means if, say, Donald Trump wins the election, then he might choose a completely different course of action.
There's no doubt that he would. The issue here is it's the period between November 5, when the election takes place, and January 20th next year, when the next president, whether that's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, is inaugurated. With other words, the Biden administration remains in place in those 2 months.
And how much room then does Israel have to ignore Washington and this deadline that's been set?
This is going to have impact in Israel. It's long, even though Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rebuffed the United States repeatedly over the last year in terms of Gaza and also in terms of Lebanon. Fact of the matter is that support for Israel by the United States has been a pillar of U.S. policy. I think one also has to keep in mind that this letter comes at a moment of broader fissures in Israel's international network, if you wish. You just saw the Brits sanction settlers. You're getting voices out of the Gulf who are starting to question whether Israel is the ally against Iran that they want, are also starting to question whether Israel's war tactics are tactics that serve their interests. So, with other words, there's a broader, if you wish, fissuring of Israel's international network that could cost it significantly.
And with this letter and with this ultimatum, it relates directly to Gaza. Any thoughts on whether it could be extended to perhaps what Israel is doing with Lebanon and Hezbollah?
Well, you've already seen that the Israelis have refrained in recent days from bombing Beirut and the southern suburbs of Beirut, as they had done until about roughly a week ago. And that was because the United States had basically requested that they tone down the attacks on the Lebanese capital. At the same time, you've got Hezbollah being very clear. It wants a ceasefire, but it wants a ceasefire both in Gaza and Lebanon. And ultimately, that is, even though the United States would like to see the two issues disconnected, it wants ceasefires in both.
All right, James, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us as always. James Dorsey from the National University of Singapore.